The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Welcome to Honest American News. We're honored today to have Mr. Doug Vogt with us. He's caused a lot of commotion in the world of the fraudulent birth certificate issues surrounding President Barack Obama. Mr. V, glad to have you on Honest American News, sir. Thank you for dropping in.
Thank you for inviting. How could I help you, or what questions did you have for me?
Well, I've got several, but why don't you start out? Everyone pretty much in the quote-unquote birther universe knows who you are, knows your name, but for the folks that are just hearing you for the first time, could you just give us a brief overview about what you've accomplished and where you're at with it?
Experience-wise, I've been in the graphics business for about 32 or 33 years, both selling scanners as well as repairing them, and also I owned a typesetting company for about 10 or 11 years. Paul Irie, my associate, had owned a large typesetting company, typographer in New Jersey and New York City, where he had been in the business for about 50 years. So collectively, Paul and I have 83 years experience in the graphics, type, and imaging business. So that's our expertise. It started back in when Obama gave released his long-form birth certificate. It was April 27th, I think, or was it 24th, 2011.
You're talking about the one they call the COLB, C-O-L-B?
Yeah, COLB stands for Certificate of Live Birth. That is what they call the long form. Basically, the long form is a blank form that the hospital gets from a state Department of Health. They fill it out, and the mother signs it, the doctor signs it, they date it, they fill in all the information, and they send it to a state Department of Health. This is true for all 50 states. And then the registrar will go over it, make sure it's signed in black ink, no cross-outs, typed in clean, and then they'll date it, they will number it, and they will sign it. And then it's officially called filing or registration. The key of understanding that the certificate number was out of sequence in relation to the certificate date, the date of acceptance, was I read all 50 states' laws on birth certificates and discovered it all came down to the terms of filing, and registration. So that process happens at one time, one day, and that's it. So if you know the average number of births in the state, you can actually figure out within a few days or a few hundred numbers what it should be. You know, I got so good as if I knew the number, I can get within a couple of days when the registration should have been. Or if I had the registration date, then I could tell you within 50 to 100 numbers what the registration number should have been. And Mike Zullo from the Arizona Sheriff's Office, as well as those that tested me, used to say, "Okay, I got a date here. What should the number be?" And I did, and I told them. Now, in that process, once you know what the law is, I was able to identify 5 or 6 other forged numbers, forged birth certificates, that they created because the first mistake they made, which is in June 12, 2008, on the short form, was they put the wrong registration date for a registration or state file number of 10,641. Elizabeth Noor and I released her twins' birth certificates in 2009. I think it was June, the end of June or end of July, and in a newspaper article, and showed proudly her microfilm copies of her 2 daughters. Her daughters were Gretchen and Susan. Susan's was 637, and Gretchen was 638. And they were accepted by the state registrar on the 11th. Obama's number was 10,641, so 3 digits more than Gretchen. And it cannot possibly be. That was one of the first things I spotted when I first wrote my first affidavit back in, I think it was May 11th, May of 2011.
Well, that seems pretty clear.
Yeah, it is. You don't have to go further than that to know the number's been forged. And so that was the first mistake. To figure out any great secret, you have to find what mistake was or what somebody did that another group of people had to react to. And that was the mistake. And so they generated multiple other forged numbers, certificates, both short forms and long forms. And there is a table on the sealed affidavit, which is now unsealed, unfortunately, that people have put up onto the birth report or inscribed. And you'll see the table. And you'll see how many were generated. And
yes, I've read that. It's very, very interesting information.
All those people know each other. What was interesting, the ones that knew each other, all their numbers were exactly 25 days off. All of them.
Well, is there any hard evidence whatsoever that the gentleman, Mr. Obama, was born in the state of Hawaii?
No, even the governor confessed to his friend Steve, who worked for the Hollywood Reporter, and I have that recording. I think it may be on ObamaForgeryBook.com on the left-hand side, where he freely says openly that, the government says, hey, he can't find a birth certificate. And it's because Obama lied to these people. Remember, they're all socialists and Marxists. The governor, Abercrombie, was head of the SDS in Hawaii. He's a raving communist. No big secret. Everybody knows it. And
they're not exactly hiding anymore either, are they?
No, of course not. But actually, the joke is on us is their philosophy is communism, socialism, but they practice national socialism.
Yeah,
that's the difference. And I really prefer not calling it fascism. They should deserve being labeled what they are: national socialists. I want to drape that thing around their necks like a stinky fish.
Well, now wait a minute. Was it what was the guy, Adolf Hitler? Wasn't he a national socialist?
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah, that's the whole point. He's the one who took basically Keynesian economics and mixed it with Tammany Hall.
Yeah.
And you wound up with it. Now, actually, it was Mussolini who called it fascism, which is state-run capitalism. We call it now crony capitalism.
Yeah.
But it really is, the Germans really perfected it. And it's really the most accurate way of describing it is National Socialism.
Well, now you said a magic word to me. You said the word Germany.
It's left-wing, not right-wing.
Yeah.
Hitler used to say, instead of workers of the world unite, he would wind up saying, workers of Germany unite.
Right.
So that's the difference. I mean, it is National Socialism is what FDR just loved, and what we're basically practicing now. They just want to complete it by removing most of our rights so the state can control us more.
Well, what's your opinion on the information that has been brought forth by this guy from United Kingdom, the intelligence guy, Michael Shrimpton?
I know a little bit of it. Once I read some of the things that I knew were blatantly wrong, I've just considered it just more disinformation. They're just trying to confuse you. The Obots are good at that also. They raise something. They have some good propaganda is this. Some of it's the truth, and some of it's a raving lie.
Yeah.
All to fool you. So the best way of doing it is be discriminating. And I can't remember some of the things he was saying, but I think he was saying that she wasn't, Ann Dunham wasn't the mother, which is absurd and just not provable, because it wouldn't explain the actions of Stanley Dunham, the father, why he shipped her off to Kenya to have the baby. So I think it's just disinformation. The guy's trying to make a name for himself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I don't pay any attention to it. If you want the facts, remember, my purpose of this whole case is following the letter of the law of misprision of felony and misprision of treason. Paul and I proved that the birth certificate was a forgery, and who else was involved. I submitted the stuff in October 18th of last year to the Seattle court. I'm reporting a crime. I'm not suing anybody, and that's what this whole case is about. Now, the Seattle judge said, it's not my jurisdiction. Take this someplace else, please. It's the ultimate hot potato for the court. They've never seen a case like this because nobody in U.S. history has ever used these two laws in this fashion.
Right.
Even though this is what the Founding Fathers intended. If you learn of a crime against the United States, you're supposed to report it. And they say a bunch of positions or offices that you're supposed to report it to.
I agree.
The federal judge. It's that simple. So the Ninth Circuit Court didn't even answer us. They're too scared to. They know we're right. So now it had to go to the Supreme Court. And I have a feeling that Kagan, we know from the clerk, because one of my attorneys went to the clerk's office at the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., and the clerk said, yeah, it's been opened, and they've read it. But they wouldn't consider it unless it was unsealed. So I sent a letter and another copy and unsealed it. So they were then able to consider it. And it clearly says who I believe, or who the evidence shows that I believe who was the spy, who was the forger. Alvin Onaka's implicated there, and Fuddy, and the person who I believe did the research on the birth certificate, who had certainly good credentials. If you're going to do a forgery like this, you would pick someone had a lot of experience with birth certificates, the process going on in departments of health. And this particular person was a computer programmer, ran a company that made programs, sold them to departments of health to record birth certificates and other vital records. And of course, his ego was boundless, and of course, he brags about it all the time. Maybe not so much now, but it's too late. It's that guy, as well as the other robots, do a wonderful job of implicating themselves all the time.
What do you believe is going to be the actual legal outcome of all of your work?
Well, to quote Dr. Conspiracy, the genie's out of the bottle. And it's basically the world, the Americans will know if they seek it out, that we have a foreign agent who is a Muslim and a communist as president of the United States, and he was put in by the Democratic Party. Its leadership, including Pelosi, damn well knew it. She certified him for the state of Hawaii, because Steve, I can't remember his name, he's now the senator from Hawaii. He was the head of the Democratic Party there, and he refused to sign off on it. Brian Sachs, that's his name.
Yeah.
He refused to sign off. Smart move, but he'd still be an accessory after would he be an accessory? He would be guilty of misprision of felony and misprision of treason. He knew about the crime. He didn't report it. That's what they'd get him on.
Well, the same thing would apply to Pelosi, right?
No, she signed it. She'd be a principal.
I saw 2 different documents she signed.
That's true, different wording. But if she knew, and she was told, I'm sure she was told by Brian Sachs that there was no birth certificate, and she signed it and said he was eligible. She was making a foreign agent eligible to run for president. She'd be a principal. She'll hang. If it's proven that she knew about it, and this is a forgery, she'll hang. This is the worst crime in American history. Nothing comes close.
Well, does it all really, truly come down to whether or not Eric Holder will do anything about it?
It has nothing to do with him anymore. My case is to put the evidence in a grand jury, appoint a special prosecutor not in the Justice Department, and prosecute the evidence. Once it's shown that the birth certificate number 640 is not owned by Obama, but by Virginia Sonahara or somebody else, it's over with. Then it's really collecting the evidence on everybody else who helped, who else knew it, who was part of this. Let me explain also, if a crime has associated with it the death sentence or life in prison, then there is no statute of limitations. So they can go back 20, 30, and 40 years on everybody who is part of this long-term conspiracy and nail them. And I hope they do. And that's why they're very nervous about it. This is really opening Pandora's box. I told the judges, I wrote a special letter to the judges, different than the canned letter or the suggested letter I put on the website obamaforgerybook.com. I told the judges, this is the worst crime in American history. You have to deal with it. Don't worry about what Congress says or how to unravel 5 years of treaties, appointments, laws, etc. Much of Congress knew he had no birth certificate. He wasn't eligible. Let them go fix the problem. Let them go decide what they're going to do. The judges should do what they have to do. It's basically either submit, any one of the Supreme Court justices can submit this to the grand jury in Washington, D.C. Only one of them. In fact, Scalia, one of them who had written a paper, a dissenting opinion on a case that said that the grand jury system has been eviscerated because the executive branch is somewhat in control of it. But the law says a judge can put it to a grand jury. Scalia could tell the other judges, either you're going to send this case back to Seattle to put it into a grand jury, or I'm going to walk down and I'm going to submit it to the grand jury here in Washington, D.C., because the law says I can. Because when this law was written, it was written in the very first Congress, second session. George Washington signed it into law. The only judges there were Supreme Court justices. I don't think they had even appropriated the money or appointed any other judges anywhere else.
Well, boy, I tell you what, Mr. Vogt, I appreciate you being on Honest American News, and I sure appreciate your explanation of your work, and all I can say is God bless you and the best of luck to you, sir.
Oh, thank you. I want people to read the stuff, to educate themselves, to know the truth and see it for themselves, what the treachery of these people did.
Give them that website one more time, please.
obamaforgerybook.com. Very simple.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Have a lovely day.
You too, sir, and God bless you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.